King, please.
I want to follow up on Senator Tulville's questions. It's actually worse than he said. The missiles that we're using to shoot down a $2,000 drone cost $2 to $4 million apiece. That's like shooting a duck with a howitzer. And we are woefully behind on the issue of directed energy. Dr. Erickson, that's one of the areas where we have, hypersonics and directed energy, we have lost the race, or we are badly losing the race. There is a ship now, to you, Dr. Schmidt, there's a ship called the USS Preble that has directed energy capability. It's in San Diego. It ought to be in the Red Sea. Don't you think the Red Sea would be a good place to test this ship right now rather than on who knows what in the Pacific?
Senator, I don't have enough knowledge to know what state of readiness that system is in, but to your point, the faster we can get these systems to the fight and make sure they're going to work when they get there, the better.
Well, my understanding is that this ship is in testing and training in San Diego, then it's going to Japan. I hope you'll take back to the department that maybe it ought to go to the Red Sea so we're not spending $2 million for every bullet that we're firing at $2,000 Houthi drones. Dr. Erickson, hypersonics and directed energy. We've got a lot of catch-up to do. This should be a hair-on-fire, urgent priority. Do you agree?
Senator, yes, I do. I'm always excited when I hear about hypersonics, and I'm hoping that maybe some of the technology we're developing at NASA, particularly with the X-59, if there's ways that we can infuse that and bring together the two different agencies, the Department of Defense and our agency, to maybe further that technology.
Well, the other piece is defense against hypersonics. That's another place where we've fallen down. Chinese hypersonic advantage renders a lot of our forward deployment strategy in the Pacific ineffective if we don't have a defense against their hypersonic missiles. I hope defense against hypersonics is a high priority as well.
Yes, sir. I will definitely, it's part of my portfolio to make sure we transition that critical technology early. And so I will work with across the departments to help us do that.
I'd like to see urgency here. Now, you've mentioned several times about small businesses. We've had testimony before this committee, and I've talked to a number of small businesses in the tech sector that have simply given up doing business with the Department of Defense. Too much bureaucracy, too much forms, too much time. So if you're serious about tapping the energy and inventiveness of our small businesses, that's got to change. And I would urge you to set up some kind of listening program to find out where the bottlenecks are, where the problems are. Why is a 12-person engineering firm that's onto something important simply not going to bother coming to the Department of Defense? Is that something that you think you might be able to undertake in order to try to find why smaller businesses aren't doing business with us?
Senator, you know how they say great minds think alike? Well, that is actually what I have in mind. I'm looking forward to having roadshows and opportunities to have workshops and to listen and learn. I understand that some of the problems that the Department of Defense has with their cyber programs are very similar to what we've experienced in NASA, and those are some of the things that we were able to do. So bringing those lessons learned to this community would be an asset, I think, which is valuable if I'm to be confirmed.
I urge you to do that and would suggest you think about how do we make the fewer forms. How many pages have to be submitted? How big is the RFP? I don't have it with me, but the RFP for a new handgun was this thick. We've got to be thinking about setting reasonable requirements. Dr. Schmidt, as far as testing are concerned, a lot of testimony we've had with regard to the Chinese approach to these things like hypersonics is they're not afraid to fail. SpaceX has that same philosophy. They learn from failure. We seem to have this idea that every test has to be successful. I hope that you'll think about and look at the way the Chinese conduct their R&D, which involves testing, failing, and then getting it right, rather than a focus entirely on every test has to work. Do you see my point?
Senator King, having worked in commercial software technology for decades, the fail fast, learn fast model is something that I'm very deeply aware of and appreciate. Naturally, we also have to balance that with making sure we don't harm things when we test, but that's where particular technology advances in high-fidelity synthetic environments and modeling and simulation environments where we can fail repeatedly and learn from our lessons without necessarily putting people in harm's way.
Final question, Secretary Dalton, KC-46, the 101st Refueling Ring in Bangor, affectionately known as the Maniacs, could use those airplanes. We've got to get them out there. We've got to have that technology of air supply, of fuel supply. We're facing a gap if we don't get this right. So I hope that continued pressure is being put on Boeing to solve the visual problem and to get those airplanes out there, and I hope to see some of them going to Bangor.
Senator, first of all, my mom is from Bangor, so I have a special corner of my
Congratulations.
heart for Bangor.
You just got my vote.
To the point, for the KC-46, this is vital for us to be able to win the war with that refueling capability. It provides, also opportunities as we look at the strategic basing process to see what are the requirements, what can line up in terms of the installation to support those requirements. And so you do have my commitment to look at this particular issue set to make sure we're meeting our objectives.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King.